Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, where we delve deep into the lives of our successful guests to learn the secrets of thriving to flourish abundantly in all areas of life. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. My guest today helps busy, hardworking people learn how to seize opportunities through real estate and build their own wealth to grow their portfolios and build passive income. Her vision is to empower people by educating them on financial options. She has built her own real estate portfolio to over 437 doors with a value of $47 million. She focuses on long-term buy and hold. While she continues to add doors to her portfolio, her focus now is on training others to do what she has done and to do it successfully. Please welcome my guest today, Edna Keep. Welcome,
so much,
Edna.
Alan.
I'm so glad to have you on my show today. I was thrilled to have you when I thought you were living in New York City, but I'm even more thrilled to know that you are a Saskatchewan and a native of Saskatchewan.
Yes, that's right.
That's different for this show. So
Okay.
let's get to know Edna Keep here. Edna, I like to start the show with going back into your childhood. I was listening to a motivational speaker, and this was a long time ago. I don't even remember who it was, but he had a very harrowing childhood. But he was he said, to know the adult within me, you have to know the child within me, first of all. Mm-hmm. And so let's go back to your childhood. And if you can think of, as you look back on it now, a transformative experience that has helped to make you who you are today. And in terms of your childhood, that can be anywhere from 1 to 40. So
okay. I did. Well, probably the most transformative, Alan, was I became a single mom at the age 16. 1 month after I turned 16, my daughter was born. And I would say that's the biggest single life transforming thing for me, because you know what? It made me grow up real quick.
I guess so, yes.
Yeah. And for a long time, I thought of it as a negative, because it was a really hard thing to go through. But now when I look back, I realize that it was actually really good for me, because when you take the focus off yourself, which most 16-year-olds do not, and I didn't even when I was 16, I was older. But when you take the focus off yourself, you a lot of times do stuff for other people that you won't do for yourself. And that, I think, is what helped push me into being the success I am today, because, I had a great childhood. I got a great family, 8 kids in our family, 6 brothers, 1 sister. Got along really good with all my brothers, not so good with my sister. But you know what? I still love those guys to this day. They're awesome people. And they all have great families. We see each other a lot. But the biggest transformative event was being a young single mom like that.
I have no doubt that was indeed transformative. Yeah. So tell us about that time and how it is that you came to terms with being a mother at 16. And as you look back on it, what were the positive things that you did to actually transform yourself and actually get yourself on a path of success?
Well, I didn't have a lot of goals when I was a young person, Alan. I really just wanted to be a mom. I thought I would be a mom and have 8 kids. And, just like I loved babysitting. I loved, having the younger brothers, and then my older brother's kids. I loved being around them. So that was really my big goal. Then I had a child at age 16, and I realized Oh my God, I didn't want any more kids at all. It was like, that was the hardest job ever. I realized I actually liked work better than I liked being a mom. I've since changed my mind a bit on it because I had two more girls later on in life. I had my second daughter when I was 42 and my third daughter when I was 44. So
wow.
big age difference between my first daughter and my last two.
Yeah.
But now this last two is so much easier. You know, I was married, my husband's a great dad and all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really awesome. But I think what got me down the path is because I was pregnant young, I got treated like I was really stupid, you know, like I wasn't very smart. And, you know, in school, I wasn't that smart. I was a C student. But I've since come to realize that, you know, Robert Kiyosaki's book, Why Do A Students Work for C Students and B Students Work for the Government? Well, I'm your typical C student. You know what? I wasn't good in school because I didn't like to be told what to do. I like to think for myself. And that's actually, I think, one of the biggest things that got me going is when I started to realize that all the stuff that made me not an A student are the same things that made me a successful entrepreneur.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard other people say the similar things like that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't imagine that it was an overnight turnaround from being a 16-year-old with no particular goals in mind to becoming the woman that you are today. So what was that journey like from suddenly being a mom and then finally turning your life around? How long did it really take?
Well, you know, it took me a while. I didn't even buy my first house till I was 28 years old because I didn't figure being a single mom that I wanted to take all the yard care of the yard and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have the money if a furnace went and stuff. So I rented for a long time. Then I started to get better jobs. Again, it was one of those things where, you know, I just didn't want to live like that anymore. I worked in a real dead-end job. It was a good job for me at the time because I worked Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, weekends off, when a lot of my friends were waitressing and working in hospitals with or senior centers with real odd hours and all that kind of stuff. So everybody I knew thought I just had the cat by the tail, you know, weekends off, an office job. But, you know, I was there for 8 years, which looking back, I shouldn't have stayed there 8 years because the last 4 years I was bored to tears, you know, really bored, but just didn't think I had it in me to go on and do anything else. And part of it was because people kept telling me that they thought I'd went as far as I was going to in my life. You know, I had my grade 12, but I hadn't taken university. And what could I expect? You know, really, could you expect to be making really good money and having a really high-end career when you only just finished high school? And so it wasn't until I really stopped listening to all those limiting beliefs that I started, you know, following other people that said, you know what, you can be whatever you want to be. And I like that way of thinking, you know. I still remember my family saying, you got to learn to live within your means, Edna. And I'm going, no, I don't want to learn to live on, I think I was making $1,200 a month. I want to learn how to make more money. And they just thought I was crazy. And when I quit my good job and moved to the city and I ended up as a waitress again because I was looking for something but hadn't found anything yet. So they all thought I was crazy. But it wasn't too long after that I moved up. I took a bunch of kind of correspondence courses and stuff like that and paid for them myself, a good $25 a month or something at the time. But I got a secretarial degree, then I got a bookkeeping degree, then I got an office administration degree, and I kept moving up like that. And eventually, at the age of, I think it was around 32, I became a financial advisor. And I started out on a part-time basis through a network marketing company. And then that was the one that really opened my eyes. That was what I was looking for, because the first year I went full-time into that business, I made $67,000. The second year I made $187,000. Then it was like basically 250, fluctuated up and down a little bit, but ever the rest of the 15 years that I was in. But that was the one that really opened my mind to that yes, I could make money.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of my start on really understanding what it took to make money too.
What an amazing journey. Well, tell us about those voices that were telling you you can't do this. Was that family members, community members,
Well,
the school, or
family mainly, because none of us had ever gone on to really do a whole lot. My one brother, just older than me, was a teacher, but all the rest are self-employed, almost jobs, like drywall and carpenters and that kind of stuff. That was kind of our legacy. And so nobody really earned a lot of money. Although I did have one relative that was in financial services that I heard was rich, made lots of money. So I remember setting my first big goal, and it was like, I want to make $100,000 a year. And I don't know, maybe something in financial services, because he was the only person I knew that was rich. I didn't even know anybody that was rich, So mostly, family. And like I said, I was never an A student. So you get kind of treated and taught that you're not that smart, and you can't expect a whole lot out of life. And I realized that was just a wrong way of thinking.
Well, you got into financial planning through a number of different courses, a number of different jobs. In terms of your personality, you seem to have a very rosy personality. Has that always been the case?
Oh gosh, no. You know what? No? When I was young, David, I was very negative.
Really?
I was just your classic negative person. Everything was wrong with my life. I hated everybody. I was very negative. So no, I had to relearn that. I think when I was really young, I was very happy and everything. But as I got into kind of the sourness of my life, then I wasn't. I was negative. And it took me a while to get out of that. I'd read books about self-talk and what do you say when you talk to yourself and different stuff like that. So I had to retrain myself to get back to being optimistic. And now I'm just an eternal optimist. I believe everything's always going to work out. So I'm the opposite. But went through a very negative period in my late teens, early 20s especially.
Well, I think that's understandable given the circumstances that you were having to deal with. It's easy to have a optimistic and rosy personality when things are going your way. It's not quite as easy when the tide has turned against you.
Yeah, so true.
Well, you may have touched on this a little bit, but there are important whys or forks in our road, I guess I should say, that as we look back on them, they are critical points in our life. So outside of becoming a mother at 16, what was an important fork in your road that when you came to that fork in the road, you knew it was a fork and you knew you had to make one decision or the other?
You know what? That was when I decided to go full-time into being a financial advisor, because I'd worked at it part-time for a while. And I think the last year I'd made like $20,000 or $24,000 or something like that. My job, which was as an office administrator, I'd made $43,000. As you see, I'm very, very money and number oriented, but I made $43,000. And I remember the manager from the financial services company, he'd been trying to talk me into going full time. I was scared because I was the only income earner and I couldn't go backwards. I just could not go backwards. And he said to me, well, he says, having a self-employed income of $24,000 probably would replace your $43,000. And I trusted him, I believed him. So that was a big step. I gave up a full job where the boss I worked with him for 8 years. He absolutely loved me. He let me set up my first group plan. I had like 100 instant clients as the financial advisor, and he made it a mandatory plan, so they all had to deal with me. It was awesome. Like, he loved me. He was awesome. He was the best boss I ever had. And so it was hard to leave. But, he said to me the last day I was going out for lunch, and he said, he kind of even got teary-eyed. We got pretty close. He says, Edna, if this doesn't work out for you, you will always have a job with me. Always. He said, you're my best employee ever. And I was only it was a construction company actually. So it was a bunch of power line construction guys. And I was in the office, and he still would tell me I was his best employee ever. And I felt the same way about him. He was my best boss ever. So that transition, that was a big one, to go from $43,000 a year income to straight commission. And many people told me I was absolutely crazy. Yeah. So that was one on the business side. But another one was when I decided to get married at the age of 40 for the first time. I was a single mom. I got engaged a couple times, but never got married. And then when we decided to have children, a lot of my friends they just couldn't believe it, because after me being a single mom for years, and I didn't want any more kids. And then when we decided, a lot of people thought I was crazy about that too, but we did it. And you know what? Those were two of the best things that ever happened to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you are just tuning into the show today, my guest today is Edna Keep, and she is busy, hardworking, helping people to seize opportunities. She's a real estate investor herself and has built a portfolio of over $47 million. But her passion is helping other people to do the same. And we've been exploring Edna's life here, and what a fascinating life it certainly has been. Many roadblocks in the way to her success, but she always kept her eye on the goal of actually making more money. And a lot of people feel like money is horrible and that's a terrible goal in life. But if you don't have any, I think it's a pretty good goal. And and if you have money, which Edna has now, there are many more opportunities, as she certainly has found. So let's talk about, Edna, let's talk about some of the doors that have been opened for you because you now have wealth.
First of all, it's so freeing when you don't have to worry about your day-to-day expenses, which I did the first half of my adult life because I was a single mom. I was a sole breadwinner, and I always had to think about that. Always had to think about it. So it's nice to get to the point in your life where that doesn't have to be. It's it's still a focus of mine because I love money. When people say, and I've had friends say to me, "Oh, don't you have enough? Like, when are you going to quit?" I love making money, and I love tying my goals to money too. Like it just still thrills me to this day. So I know it's different from a lot of people, but I just can't or don't want to change it. I think it's a great scorecard. I still remember doing a training through Jim Rohn, a motivational speaker. Do you remember him, Jim Rohn? And he said, become a millionaire, not because of the money, but because of the person you'll become. And that's what I'm always searching for. I love to become a better person. My mantra is learn, grow, share. I love doing that. I love learning. I love growing as a person, and I love sharing. And, money just goes hand in hand with that. And it's just a scorecard anymore,
Mm. Well, outside of money, I expect there are other things in your life that are important. So what is it outside of money that gives you meaning in life?
I love helping my students make money. And I love teaching them about buying multifamily properties. I like helping them find investors so they can help their investors make money. So a lot of it is still money oriented, but I get as much of a thrill out of helping my student finalize an apartment building deal than I ever did on my own. And you know what, I find the same thrill working with my kids, teaching with them and getting them to, kind of take control of their thinking. And that's something that we're really focusing on right now, because with COVID-19, my daughter was supposed to graduate this year, and she did officially, but they haven't got all the fun part with it. So she's a little bit frustrated. And so I'm trying to work on her with keeping her mindset up there. And so I love that part of my life. I love helping other people. I like working on my mindset. And one of the really cool things, Ellen, that's happening in my life right now that is so funny, but the company that I started with as a financial advisor part-time, my daughter just signed up with them. It's a network marketing company, and it's called Primerica now, but back in the day it was called A.L. Williams when I started it. And it was really interesting how it came back on my radar, because I had not thought of that company for years. I left them in like 94, I think. But I was talking to somebody, kind of, I think it was on a podcast like this, and he was telling me he just signed up his 18-year-old daughter into Primerica. And I went, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I should get my daughter in. So I introduced her, found a guy who's in the next city over, makes $600,000 a year, 37 years old, started when he was 21. And she just did her first sale today, actually, with him, with my husband, of course. Your family got to support that. But so that's a new thrill for me, kind of living again vicariously back to, that was my first transition into making any kind of money, Yeah. Built up a lot of confidence doing that kind of stuff. Anything to do with sales, I think, builds up a person's confidence.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, you certainly have lived a life that is inspirational to, I'm sure, many people, because it isn't the norm to be born into money, and it is always inspirational to see people who have come from backgrounds of not so much, but to have been able to turn that around and really make something of their lives here.
Yeah.
So I'm sure your students and your mentees enjoy who you are and get a lot out of working with you. We're coming to the end of our time together, and it has been an enjoyable time. I have one last question I ask all of my guests before closing, but before going to that, share with our viewers and listeners how it is that they can get in touch with you.
I'm on Facebook a lot. I do Facebook Lives twice a week, training people. Monday, it's called Mindset Monday, and then Friday, it's Free Coaching Friday, all about real estate. So that's a great place to find me. Just Coach Edna Keep is my handle on there. My website is also ednakeep.com. And then, of course, if the multifamily interests them and they want to set up a strategy call with me, they can reach out to me. My email address is also edna@ednakeep.com. And just, I'm happy to chat with anybody who wants to expand their life. I train nowadays not only on buying multifamily, but also the mindset that it takes to, go from somebody who earned $1,200 a month to somebody who can, make $1,200 in a minute. I get over $1,200 from one single tenant nowadays. And I think my bio I gave you, I was thinking it sounded a little dated. We're actually at 600 doors valued at $65 million now. So what I gave you was a little bit old. I thought I must have just printed it off or sent you the old one. But that's different. One tenant, and we've got over 500, can pay me $1,200. And that used to be what I made in a month for income. So that's a mindset shift. And that's one of the things that I really help my students with, is really doing that mindset shift from, what does it take to go from somebody earning, $100,000 a year to, $100,000 a month, and it is definitely a mindset shift people have to go through. It's not a strategy. It's not a technique. It's more than that. And I really enjoy sharing that too.
Well, my last question is, when you come to the end of this life's journey, how do you want your epitaph to read?
she made a difference in my life.
Wonderful. And I can see that you're making a difference in many people's lives here. I hope that we can have future conversations. I would definitely love to get into this aspect of mindset and how that came about in your life and how it is that you help others to make that mind shift. Mm-hmm. So let's plan on getting back together here.
Absolutely.
So thanks so much, Edna, for being on the program today, and I look forward to future conversations.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Like I always say, it's such a great service that you're doing to sharing different people with your audience, because lots of people wouldn't have any connection with, especially, where you're thinking where you're from, where I'm from. How would we ever meet people if it wasn't for Zoom and podcasts and all that kind of stuff? It's wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you so much for being on the program today.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.